Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Hey everyone, welcome to Business Growth Talks. Today I'm going to be talking about COVID and how it has impacted business. So COVID-19 changed the business world forever. What did we learn from one of these most disruptive experiences in modern history? In this video, we're going to break down the top 10 business lessons from the pandemic that every company needs to know about, from the digital transformation to the supply chain resilience and to the rise of remote working. These insights will are shaping the future of business. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a business leader, or just curious about how companies are adapting, please do stick around to this episode. These are the lessons that you need to know if you're going to break it in the post-pandemic world. So let's dive into this. So COVID has disrupted economies and industries across the globe, forcing businesses to adapt rapidly to an unprecedented and unpredictable environment. With these challenges that are immense, the pandemic also highlighted key lessons that have helped organizations build resilience, innovation, and sustainability for the future. So I'm going to talk through these 10 things today. So, strengthening business continuity and crisis preparedness. This is something that many businesses were caught off guard during the pandemic. It's led to massive operational disruptions. Organizations with crisis preparedness plans were given were thought about scenarios of planning and supply chain. These were able and had to be pivoted very quickly. Businesses must have invested in robust risk management strategies to create adaptability in their business continuity plans. These included maintaining operational flexibility, diversified revenue streams, and developing frameworks to respond to future crises. No one thought about this whole idea of something to that such extreme. Now, I know from working in corporate, there is definitely business continuity plans in place. These companies do think about every eventuality, but this was something that was outside of the box that we just didn't think about, of the vast nature that it impacted business and the world. So we were not ready for this. Now, what the plan is that these companies now have got a greater flexibility, a greater depth of knowledge of the sort of situations that happened with COVID. So hopefully they are doing this, and hopefully they are preparing themselves to other situations like COVID. What also happened was there was an acceleration in the digital transformation. This was no longer an option, this digital transformation. It was critical for business success. The pandemic accelerated the shift towards global digital business models. Companies that had already embraced digital tools for operations, sales, and customer service were the best equipped in this disruptive world, whether you're talking about remote working or e-commerce. In contrast, businesses that were slow to adopt a digital transformation have remained uncompetitive. Every business now must prioritize digital transformation, focusing on cloud operations, data-driven decision-making, and online customer engagement. Technologies like automation and AI and e-commerce platforms are now the future, and they're now in the present. They're not just in the future, they are in the present. There probably is some correlation between AI booming in the way that it is currently in September 2024, and that has probably been a result of things that have developed with regards to technology and automation. There's also been a supply chain diversification. So it means that companies in the supply chain world have to mitigate risks. The pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains, with many businesses facing disruptions in sourcing materials and products. Over reliance on single suppliers or specific geographical regions like China created bottlenecks, leading to shortages and delays. Businesses need to diversify their supply chains by establishing relationships with multiple suppliers and exploring local and regional alternatives. They also should invest in technology to increase the transparency and flexibility of their supply chain. Now, post COVID, we've had wars and things like this, and like the Ukraine war, which has had a massive impact on supply chain. But it does mean that companies are now having to think about alternate routes, and that reliance on China, which we've had for such a long time for a lot of our materials and a lot of the clothing and things like that, we now have to think about this in a diverse way. So companies now have to think about this a lot more than this over reliance on China, because we locked down. We completely locked down and we were not able to start transporting. So we have, as businesses, we have to think of different supply chains. Next, remote working as a business strategy. So, when I worked in corporate during COVID, remote working was something relatively new. We'd done it, we had got that set up, but almost instantly, overnight, we needed to set this remote working strategy. This is no longer a temporary solution. This is now a viable long-term strategy. As offices now are shutting down, and they shut down during the pandemic, companies across industries have to transition to remote working. What started as an emergency measure quickly proved that it had long-lasting benefits, increasing productivity, cost savings, and improving employer satisfaction. Businesses should continue refining their remote and hybrid working policies to maintain operational efficiency and employee well-being. This requires investing in collaboration tools, cybersecurity, and new management practices that support a disrupted workforce. So this is a good thing for a lot of workers. They want to work at home. They want to be given that option. And this is something that a lot of people now are enjoying, part of their work-life balance. I think there are positives and negatives to it. Greater flexibility, but I do think there is some need personally to have some sort of face to face. If you're a big corporate, having some days in the office, I think, is beneficial. Smaller companies, you don't actually need to have it. A lot of smaller businesses have been remote working for a long time and they don't need to do it. But I do think with larger corporates where there's a lot of education, a lot of knowledge transfer, actually spending some days in the office can be beneficial, my opinion. Next, the need for agility and innovation. Business agility and innovation are essential for staying competitive in an uncertain world, which was the period of the pandemic. The pandemic forced many companies to rethink their product offerings and their customer interactions. Businesses that quickly adapted, whether by pivoting to a new product, entering new markets, or finding creative ways to engage with customers, were more likely to succeed. Fostering a culture of innovation and agility is critical for businesses moving forward. Leaders should encourage experimentation, empower teams to be taking calculated risks, and remain open to changing their business strategies to respond to shifting markets. When COVID was happening, I remember the word pivot was used all the time, everywhere. And it was a very important idea. Having that agility within their business model to think of new ways of being able to get clients and build their businesses. But this is not just in the pandemic time. We should always, as a business, think of new services, new products or services that can impact. But it more acutely became an important factor during the pandemic. And after the pandemic, these words, agility, innovation, pivoting, is something which has now been embedded in our language much more than it was beforehand. Next, the power of customer centricity. Look, we all need to have customer focuses businesses and strategies that build loyalty and long term value. The pandemic revealed the importance of understanding and anticipating customers' needs during their time of crisis. Businesses that prioritize customer centric offering, flexibility, empathy, and solutions tailored to the customer's evolving situations retained loyalty even during economic uncertainty. Companies must continue to double down on customer centric strategies, investing in personalized experiences, flexible service models, and seamless digital interactions. Listening to customers and responding with agility is far more critical than ever. That whole idea of putting your customer at the center of your business and being able to measure what they're interested in, listening to what their trends are, what they want to see, what they want to do is so important. And it's just been crystallized so much more because of COVID. So do think of that when you're in your own business. Next, the value of employee well-being. Supporting employees' being directly impacts business performance. The pandemic placed significant mental, physical, and emotional strain on workers. Companies that recognize the importance of the company employee well-being by providing flexibility, mental health resources, and maintaining open communication, they saw an improved morale and productivity. Businesses should view employee well-being as a strategic priority. This means offering flexible working arrangements, mental health support, and fostering a positive and inclusive workplace culture. A healthy, engaged workforce is essential for long-term business success. I believe this that your employees are more important than your customers. I'm not the first person to say this, but I think it is so important. If you have a really engaged employees that you're supporting them in times where they might be want different time, flexible working, or they're struggling a little bit, or just making sure that we're all communicating in the company really well. That those are the people that can succeed, and employees give you great customers experience as well. So it really is important that you think about how you look after your employees. It is super important, super critical, and you guys should not forget this as a business owner. Next, resilience in leadership. Effective leadership during a crisis requires resilience, empathy, and adaptability. The pandemic put business leaders under immense pressure to make rapid decisions with limited information. Leaders who demonstrated resilience, led with empathy, and communicated clearly were able to navigate their teams through uncertainty more successfully. Leaders must develop crisis management skills and focus on fostering transparency, empathetic communication with their teams. Building trust and resilience in leadership ensures businesses can weather unexpected challenges. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to you. Really, you need your leaders to be resilient. They need to be able to make decisions and make decisions quickly. This is something that should have been in place and should have been a bedrock of the leaders and the CEOs and the partners and the leaders of companies. But we had to go through a pandemic to really think about how the leadership is being effective, is actually making the right decisions, is being led by empathy for its employees. This is something that I'm really disappointed has come up on my list and when I was doing the research on this, because this should be a major factor in all leadership. And the pandemic has just shone a light on those companies that they were resilient, they were empathetic, and they communicated clearly with their teams. Shame on you that you've not been doing this, but anyway, next one, sustainability and responsibility. Sustainability and corporate responsibility are key to future-proofing businesses. The pandemic highlighted the interconnectedness of businesses, society, and in the environment. Many companies have realized that sustainable practices and social responsibility are not just ethical choices, but also critical for long-term survival and brand reputation. Businesses should integrate sustainability into their core strategies, focusing on environmental impact, social responsibility, and governance. A commitment to sustainability helps attract customers, investors, and employees who prioritize ethical practices. This was a bit of a trend that was happening before the pandemic, but I think the reason why I'm talking about this now is that the next generation of 20-year-olds that are coming into business, this is really important. It was almost a generation ago it started to become more and more important for people, but now being environmentally aware, the governance being strong and ethical is something which is just really making a big impact on business, and especially in the corporate environment. So yeah, it's something that I think is going to continue to being important for the employees as well as the customers as well. And lastly, innovation in business models. Business models need to be flexible and innovative and adapt to changing environments. Many companies had to reinvent their business models in response to shifting consumer behavior and market conditions during the pandemic. From restaurants pivoting to delivery services to retailers embracing e-commerce, and the ability to innovate quickly has proved essential. Businesses must stay agile and be willing to experiment with new revenue streams, partnerships, and customer engagement strategies. Developing flexible business models allows companies to quickly adapt to changing markets, conditions, and other emerging opportunities. This is obvious. We need to innovate. We need to be flexible. And the change of I think the shift that the pandemic gave to us was that this is really important. You need to be able to think of new revenue streams, new clients, customer bases, partnerships, and things like that. And I think it's so important that this is now in the bedrock of where business is going forward. So there's a lot I've gone through there. 10 points on how the pandemic, COVID-19, has reshaped the business world. So we've thought about crisis preparedness. We've talked about digital transformation, the need for agility. These are all things that are at the heart of business and the investment on those businesses. Leadership being resilient, innovative, creating sustainability positions is so important for this next generation. And it feels that the pandemic has just crystallized all of this really acutely. That means that these customer-centric businesses that are being led by great leaders and they look after their employees are the people who are going to succeed. Some of these points are not only affected by what happened with the pandemic, but these are the things that are going to shape business into this latter end of this decade. So guys, you need to think about these things. These things are going to be really important to you. If you've got any comments below on anything I might have missed, I'd be very happy to see that, and I will respond to those comments. I'd be really interested to see what you think on where business is post-pandemic. We're now, 4 years ago, 2024. These things are really important for us to be thinking about. And I think it's long enough past the day of the pandemic that we can now really be able to look back with hindsight and give some really good assessments. So hopefully you've enjoyed what I've done today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content. It's something a little bit different for today. I thought I would drop in there because I felt it was something very important to talk to you about. So please do give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this content. As I say, hit me down below with the comments if you enjoyed that. And please don't forget, if you're enjoying this content, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You will not miss an episode of Business Growth Talk. So thank you very much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.